Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know if I've gotten along with a bike better than this one, besides the Ibis Ripley, which is, again, a much shorter travel bike, but that's a bike I always felt right at home on. And that's how I feel on this. I love how snappy this is for a longer travel bike. And, you know, I've already said it, but the SB140, it's the most balanced, do everything bike I've ever ridden. 100%. Nice, right? So sick. Hey, what's up, guys? We're doing an extended long-term video review today. I've been riding the Yeti SB140 lunch ride, geez, for almost 6 months. Over 5 months, yeah. And, you know, by the time I publish this video, it'll be over 6 months. So I've logged a ton of miles on this thing now, and I have really enjoyed it. Like, straight away, I'll just tell you, first impressions, if you haven't seen that video, you can go click up here and check out my original video of when I rode it down in southern Utah with my buddy Kevin. And first impressions, you know, you have to compare it to the Yeti SB130 lunch ride. I owned that bike 2 years ago, and I rode that bike a ton. And this is just a more balanced version of that bike. It's just a more easygoing, like a slightly easier to ride bike, and more efficient climber. Everything that I would have wanted changed on the 130, I feel like Yeti changed and made this bike just the perfect do-it-all bike. In today's video, I'm going to describe some of the nuances of owning this bike long-term. You know, I still, after 6 months, think that this is the most well-rounded bike I've probably ever ridden. Can just do everything so well. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to bring you along for our ride today. So a little departure from my normal video format. I'm going to be basically on the bike the whole time, so you won't see my face, but we'll be out here riding with my son Ryan, who's 10 years old. He's on a transition ripcord, and Ryan and I have been spending a lot of time riding bikes together this year, haven't we, bud?
Yes.
Ryan's really come into his speed this year, and the SB140 is usually the bike that I grab when I go ride with Ryan, because we usually get off, a lot of my trails are kind of more flowy, not super difficult trails. And I know on YouTube everything gets, you know, you can't see the trail super well, but Ryan likes to go exploring. Went and rode Crest Trail last week and rode some gnarly, bumpy trails. You like that stuff, bud?
I love it.
Anyway, so it's fun to have Ryan out here filming with me. If you don't follow me on Strava, just before we get into this review, go check me out on Strava. My name is Jay, just the letter J, and then Dahl, D-A-H-L. I ride almost every day. Been riding bikes for a long time. If this is your first time to my YouTube channel, I try to review bikes and let's go right and describe like what they feel like, not just what kit comes on it. You can look a lot of that stuff up online. I want to describe what's the little nuances of the bikes are. So climbing, man, this bike is as efficient as any bike out there. In fact, if you remember on the channel, I used to own the Yeti SB140 that came out last September. I got that bike right away and rode it all fall last year. And I would say this is just as efficient as that bike. It's just crazy. In fact, between the 120 and this bike, I haven't ridden the non-lunch ride version of the 140. I think it has a 150 millimeter fork instead of the 160 that comes on this one. And I think it has just like a Fox Float shock instead of the Float X, or maybe it's the DPS shock. And anyway, there's a link below this video down in the description. You can go check out all the details on this bike. But the SB140 non-lunch ride, I would imagine if your trails are pretty chill and your speed's a little lower, that might be a neat option. I haven't ridden it, but I'm sure it rides very similar to this. Same bike. But this bike just hammers up the trail. If you feel like you do a ton of climbing and you're uncertain if you need a 140 mil bike, I think that this bike rides flow trails and slower speed trails better than any other bike in this category. It's so responsive and so like just efficient that I think you could get away with running a little bit faster tire. I've put a Maxxis Recon on the back of this bike with the new Maxxis Forecaster up front. I've ridden it with Forecaster front and rear, obviously DHF in the front and DHR2 Maxxis tires in the rear. And just in the last week or so, I've been running it with these new Specialized tires, the Butcher on front and the Eliminator on the back. And that's been a fun experience, just trying out all these different tires. But the takeaway on the climbing of this bike is it's incredibly efficient on trails like you see today. But then when you go get down in some of the more gnarly, like low traction scenario type trail situations, oh man, I feel like this bike is such a good climber in the tech. It's crazy. So if you're watching this video, you're probably considering the SB140 or 140 lunch ride as your potential next bike. And man, the real great thing about this is it's incredible all-arounder and it climbs efficiently, but man, the descending is so good. And look, all the bikes are good now. I mean, I've got a Revel Rail 2.9 at my house right now. I've got a Stump Jumper Evo, an Ibis Ritmo. I had a Switchblade a couple weeks ago. I mean, I've been riding a lot of the, quintessential all-arounder, do-everything bikes, and they're all really good. The 140 is the best. There's no doubt about it. I'm not sponsored by Yeti. I've got no reason to tell you it's better than another. But this bike is so balanced. The rear Switch Infinity Link suspension, that rear Fox Float X shock is just paired so well with this Fox 36 up front. The bike feels so balanced. It's just incredible. And for a minute there, I was thinking the Stump Jumper Evo is a pretty incredible bike and can kind of, in some ways, keep up with the SB140 at a much lower price point. I thought, man, it kind of makes sense if you're on a budget to consider that bike. I mentioned that to Chris at Salt Cycles, and he said, man, what do I gotta do? And I said, put your Yetis on sale, man. Stump Jumpers are on sale right now. It's June of 2023. A lot of bikes are on sale right now. Get that SB140 down to a price point that makes sense for people who are considering bikes like the Ibis Ritmo that's been on sale, and the Stump Jumper Evo has been on sale. And so bam, Chris at Salt Cycles has not just the SB140, but all Yetis, 20 to 25% off right now. Doesn't matter what build it is, he'll custom build it for you. He says, let's give people a reason to ride a Switch Infinity Yeti instead of a horse slink or single pivot Stump Jumper. So in any case, I don't know if there's ever been a better time than right now to buy a Yeti Cycles mountain bike. So the 140s are 20 to 25% off right now. You can call the number here on the screen, talk to Chris at Salt Cycles. They're the bike shop that kind of supports me and helps me keep doing this YouTube channel. So it's a huge support when people call them up and buy a bike from them. In any case, they can custom build it for you, any build. Give them a call and try to talk to Chris. But the real reason why, and really it's all the bikes, even the e-bike, even the Yeti e-bike. So if you're looking at a 120 or this 140 or any of those bikes, give those guys a call. But which is so nice because bikes are getting expensive. But I already thought the 140 was the best bike in the category. I used to think the Ripmo was the most like well-balanced, do everything bike until I rode this thing. And the changes they made on the 130, and I already talked about this, changes they made on that 130 just, I mean, make this bike just a better do everything bike. Anyway, descending, let's get up to the top here. That's the real reason why you're looking at this bike. It descends so well, so supportive. And you really feel it like on days when I ride the Stump Jump Revo like yesterday, then hop on the 140 today. On the downhill, man, I mean, this climbs more efficiently, but the downhill, it's got so much more support, and the tune of the shock just feels like more resilient to trail input. Let's get on the downhill. All right, the downhill. That's what this bike is really all about anyway. I mean, there's lots of bikes that you can climb good on, you know. SB140 climbs good. Ibis Ripley, those are all fun bikes for climbing on, and they're good all-rounders too, but this is a real do-everything bike, the 140. And that's what I love about it. I can come ride flow trails like this with my son Ryan, which, by the way, if you're wondering, we're riding a trail called Rush in Draper, Utah. And I know Ryan's a little guy, he's only 10, but he's a really fast little rider. I think his PR down this segment of trail on Strava, about 7 minutes and 20 seconds. So, and that's probably about what we'll do today, because he'll probably just keep ripping. Anyway, this bike kind of feels precise and nimble, almost like on a flow trail like this, almost as much as the SB120 and the Ibis Ripley, which are those shorter 120 mil travel bikes, right? Almost as nimble, basically just as precise. It's incredible. You can just put this bike wherever you want, but then it doesn't get overwhelmed when we go ride, like Ryan and I went and rode up in the mountains, like up in the big trails, and it doesn't get overwhelmed. I mean, I can go take this to the bike park and it won't get overwhelmed. And so that's what constitutes a real do-everything trail bike, in my opinion. Whereas the SB120 and the Ripley, I love the Ibis Ripley, but man, there's a double. There's a jump up here that's a little gap jump that I never feel comfortable hitting on a slightly smaller bike. On this bike, no problem. I mean, I'm just comfortable. I don't worry about what the terrain's gonna be like with this bike. We can just handle everything. And then I should also just mention, like, the fit and finish of Yeti's bikes, their most current batch of bikes, like this SB140, man, everything about it is just top notch. It's dead quiet, doesn't make a single noise when I'm riding it. And all the cables are put into the frame really nice and clean looking. It's really nice. Okay, lots of speed for these jumps. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to beat this bike. It's just really, another thing, it's just so balanced. Like, anyone who got on this bike, I would be shocked if anyone's gotten on this bike and been like, I don't get along with it. Like, it's so easy going and well balanced. I love it. I feel right at home on it right away. That big double right there, that's the one I was telling you about. Like, when I'm riding a Ripley or even the SB120, I just feel a little sketched hitting that side. I don't know, it's maybe a 15-foot gap. And I don't know, on this bike, I just feel safe and secure. That's what, to me, a do everything bike is. I can take it anywhere and feel like I'm okay. So the other thing, like, to describe this bike through chunkier sections of trail, which I know we're riding a flow trail, but there are a bunch of rocks and stuff. This bike feels like really, it doesn't feel super deep and plush, really ever, but it doesn't ever feel harsh either. It just feels really supportive, like you can push into it. Let's keep rolling, bud. You can just push into it hard. Like in every corner, you can just push, 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 and get the very most out of it. Got a little bit of a headwind here. Normally we'd be hitting some jumps, but kind of slow with that wind. Ryan hits the jumps anyway. Some of them. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know if I've gotten along with a bike better than this one, besides the Ibis Ripley, which is, again, a much shorter travel bike, but that's a bike I always felt right at home on, and that's how I feel on this. I love how snappy this is for a longer travel bike. And, you know, I've already said it, but the SB140, it's the most balanced, do everything bike I've ever ridden. 100%. Nice, right? So sick. I rode this bike up in Park City last week on like some straight down like skidders, just sketchy stuff. And I don't know, there's not another bike I would have felt more comfortable on. I don't need more bike than this. I understand how some people do, but I'd be comfortable going riding lift service for a day on this bike, no problem. And the bike feels stiff. Like, I mean, I'm only 5'8", 145 pounds, so I don't have a ton of weight to push on this bike, but it feels like really a good amount of stiff. It feels really responsive and precise in the corners. And it's the type of bike, like, oh, a good example here. On Saturday, just a couple days ago, I rode with my daughter and we did 25 miles and 3,400 feet of climbing. I did it on this bike and it was fine. You can go do big days on this bike. No stress. Nice, bud. I love this section of trail. Just lots of jibby, poppy, fun stuff. And this bike does not wallow in the travel. It sits really high in its travel and has a ton of support in that shock. So it makes it easy to pump and kind of get these little bursts of energy off of the trail, which makes trail riding a lot of fun. Well, we'll get back to the house here and give you a final thoughts like we do. To kind of put into words, to sum up the SB140 and the reason why I like it so much, and the reason why I think so many of you would like it, is if you want to go ride, you know, those steeper, faster, jankier trails, this bike can do it, and it does it differently than a lot of the other bikes in this category. I think about like the Santa Cruz Hightower, the Specialized Stump Jumper Evo, the old Evil, the Offering, obviously the Ripmo and the Switchblade, and there's a bunch of other bikes in this category, but those bikes are kind of made to kind of be able to go ride those high-speed, janky trails and then still do trail duty like what you saw in the video today, the slower speed, kind of more flowy trails. And those are the type of trails that we ride most often, that most people ride most often, right? If you're a dad like me, it's just easy access to those trails. And so I try to think, well, why do I like the SB140 so much? And the reason why is because when you ride the Evil Offering or even the Stump Jumper Evo, and certainly the like Santa Cruz Hightower, on these slower speed trails, the flow trails, the more, the easy access trails, they kind of are they're a little cumbersome. The bike feels a little long, a little too slack. The suspension feels a little too like wallowy in the travel, and that's all really great and good when you're up just cruising at high speeds through really chunky terrain. But on the slower speed stuff, it just doesn't perform quite as well. The bike doesn't feel as sporty and lively and responsive, and that's what you want out of a bike, right? Especially on those type of blue trails. And so if you feel like you need a bike like this to go ride trails that are more demanding and high speed, this is a bike that can kind of blur into that really, not cross country, but kind of the shorter travel trail bike category. And that's what I like about it so much. I went and rode Park City last week on this bike, and we rode some straight down skidders, some big jumps and drops, and I felt just fine. It didn't feel like I didn't have enough control or the bike wasn't long enough. It was incredible. It was great. This is the bike I grab when I go ride the bike park. This is the bike. I love it. 160 mils up front is plenty for me. But I need a bike that's still fun to ride when I go with my son, like this morning. And that's why I love it. That's why this is the best do everything bike available right now. It just does everything so incredibly well. I've produced enough videos on this YouTube channel by now to you get the point. But long-term update, it's a quiet bike. There's no weird rattles or anything. It holds one water bottle here. I wear a hip pack. I took it off when I was helping Ryan get inside the door when we got home. But it's a quiet, it's easy bike. It's just the perfect bike, and it's just beautiful. It comes in black, Yeti blue, that kind of turquoise color. Comes in a mint color that's really good looking. That's the color my buddy Kevin got. And then this kind of purplish sangria color. Anyway, I've loved the heck out of riding this thing. Comment in the comment section down below with any questions or comments that you have. I do a really good job of answering those over the first week after the video is published. And then follow me on Strava and on Instagram. That's where you'll see what bikes I'm riding next soonest. And then if you're new to the channel or if you haven't subscribed, stick around and subscribe. More than 75% of my viewers are unsubscribed, so stick around and help grow the channel. Thanks to Salt Cycles for sponsoring today's video, and they've done such a good job of helping me get on these bikes. They're offering 20 to 25% off all the new Yetis right now. It doesn't matter which build it is, they can custom build it for you. I've got this custom built with full XTR because Yeti doesn't offer it that way, but if you want transmission from SRAM or just a regular access or mechanical X01 or something from SRAM, they can build that for you, and custom wheels, whatever you need. So thanks to those guys for supporting the channel and offering incredible deals to the viewers. So yeah, thanks to Salt Cycles. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks, guys.